and your city.
All right,
if
here
you
we
would.
go.
And you can also participate and continue the
Trump's
conversation on
fault,
social
free
media, on
space.
X and on Facebook. Let's begin with Kim in Carmichael, California, Independent Line. Kim, what's on your mind this morning?
Well, I want to talk about Gaza. And one of the things I want to say, I love
California
Cspan.
caller.
I watch it every morning for the last 15 years or
Got
more.
one.
And I want to say that out of respect, I am not anti-Semitic. I'll answer the question for myself. But it does puzzle me that when somebody talks pro-Israel, you never asked, are you anti-Islamic? And I think that's part of the problem. You know, we look at it as if somebody, because they're looking at a genocide happening, does that make
Genocide.
me anti-Semitic? No, it doesn't. It makes me a human. The suffering that's happening there is very, is being felt worldwide, and you see it. And it doesn't matter, you know, when people say to me 30,000 people have died, but that's what Hamas says, it doesn't matter who's saying it. You know, let's just even say if it's 15,000, that's 15,000 too many. If the people that in Israel on October 7th, if 107 is too many to be murdered and raped and robbed and killed, and children's left as orphans, all of that's too many. Then also 15,000 is too many.
Kim, thank you. Thank you for calling in and expressing your viewpoint.
Thank you, Kim.
Benny is in Stockton, California, Democrats line. Hi, Benny.
All right, here we go, too.
Hello, good morning. My pet peeve is...
Pet peeve?
I'm a Democrat. I voted Democratic since the first vote I cast for Jesse Jackson. And I'm seriously leaning towards Trump. Although Trump says some outrageous thing, but he's talking about closing the border. I say that because I've had 2 accidents in the last 2 years caused by Hispanics. And because of that, they refuse to fix my car. They do underhanded things. Man. It's too many here, so I'm seriously thinking about voting for Donald J. Trump because he promised he would close the border. The other thing is, I just found out that black people do not have a right to vote. Every 10 years it's extended. We are Americans. Why do we not have the right to vote?
Benny, I'm not sure what you mean by that second point. Are you talking?
Well, I was speaking with a gentleman yesterday, and he said every 10 years we have to be reestablished to vote. And I just don't understand why, because we are Americans. We should have the same rights.
I would suggest a little more investigation about that second point, Benny, because unless you're talking about the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act, I can't imagine any other possible reason that your friend would say that out loud. Velma, Ashland, Kentucky, Republican, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. To Benny, that's not true. If that were true, we would have heard a whole lot about it. You are right. You're an American. You have the right to vote, and don't believe that person you're talking to. Anyway, this latest unbelievable people, illegals breaching the Texas fence, rushing the border agents, injuring them. What, did we ever think we'd see this?
Yeah,
the president
after Joe Biden was elected.
Because they're trying to enforce their laws and protect their people and their property. It's unbelievable, and that's going to get worse.
Velma, have you seen a increase in population in Ashland that may be coming from the border?
I've seen, not to be stereotyping anybody, I've seen more foreign people in the area. I haven't seen any breaching of border. Not near the border, right. But I expect an overflow in our area, just same as anyone else's. By the time November 5th gets here, we're going to have how many illegals here? And then another thing on Israel. the gentleman were talking earlier about the 18-year-old students being taught to hate Israel, kill Jews, and all this and that. Well, these 18-year-old students are the children of the people that elected Hamas and put them in power. Hamas is Palestinians.
Yep.
Now, not all Palestinians are terrorists. I know that. But much of the Palestinian population voted them into office, knowing what they are, knowing what they do, knowing what their goal is. Most of what is happening over there is not Israel's fault. There is no perfect war. When one country invades another, like Japan attacked Pearl Harbor years ago.
That's Velma in Ashland, Kentucky. And this is Maryland out in San Francisco on our independent line. Hi, Maryland.
3 California callers in.
Maryland, you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We are listening. Please go ahead.
Yes. I'm calling about the public policy issue of affordable housing. I want the federal government to take the same actions that they did for the returning GIs after World War II, where they made housing affordable for young families. I talked to so many people in other states, Michigan, Florida, other parts of the East Coast, where people cannot afford housing. And I'm not talking about, a McMansion. I'm talking about a basic starter house, $150,000 on an entry-level salary. What this country has allowed Wall Street to do to take over the housing market and be in the single-family housing market, not apartments, which they've been in for decades, not condos and townhouses, is ridiculous. And I want to know why the federal government does not take this seriously and does not. I mean, the $10,000 that Biden.
The federal government doesn't care about its citizens any longer.
Give me a break. $10,000. I believe when GIs came home from World War II, the percentage that they were asked to pay for their first starter home, which is probably worth millions in the former orange groves of Southern California now, was a lot smaller percentage than people are being asked to pay of their income.
Marilyn, you're calling in from San Francisco, which is known for its high housing costs. What's your situation?
My situation is that I actually inherited property. I had some generational wealth in my family, and I inherited the housing situation where I live now, which I'm grateful for. And the state of California is very progressive, and had been in previous years, progressive about making sure people, even on disability and such, could afford housing with Section 8 vouchers and that sort of thing. There has to be a major focus by the federal government on putting up subdivisions in the middle of the cornfields of Iowa or something so people can afford housing.
Thank you, Marilyn. Sharon is next, North Bend, Oregon, Democrats line. Sharon, you're on C-SPAN.
All right, Sharon, let's go. Give me a bingo.
Good morning. I just wanted to remind everyone that Donald Trump and the people that follow him did everything in their power to overturn a free and fair election.
Yeah.
The disrespect for the voters was just incredible, and it
tried to steal, overturn the election.
They, for all practical purposes, promised more of the same, along with violence. And if anyone forgets for a moment that the Republican Party, with Donald Trump in charge, wants to take everyone's right to choose who the leader of our country is, they're just, if they can't forget it.
Unbelievable.
They have to know it. And I think it's very important for people to not think that there's anything ordinary about that. There's nothing ordinary about that.
That's Sharon in North Bend, Oregon, in the New York Times this morning. A busy Monday for Trump as 2 court cases collide. Donald J. Trump is expected to spend his Monday morning in the courtroom of a New York judge who might soon preside over his criminal trial and ultimately throw him behind bars. And that's not even the legal predicament that worries Mr. Trump most that day. The hearing in his Manhattan criminal prosecution in which
Such
he is accused
garbage.
of covering up a sex scandal to pave his way to the presidency, comes as he races to fend off a financial crisis arising from a $454 million judgment in another case. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, who brought that civil fraud suit against the former president and his family business, might begin to collect as soon as Monday. That's in the New York Times. Now, in the Washington Post, as Trump faces deadline on bond, a few likely outcomes may await him. Number one, nothing happens immediately. The appeals court generally issues rulings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so there is very little chance he will act on Monday on Trump's request to waive the bond requirement. If it doesn't, and if Trump doesn't post a bond by then, legal experts say there is nothing preventing Letitia James from calling on the New York City sheriffs or on city
This is so
marshals to
stupid.
begin seizing his assets. The second thing that could happen, according to the Washington Post, Letitia James moves to enforce. Experts say she would probably start with the New York properties, partly because the LLCs that own two of them, 40 Wall Street and his Seven Springs estate in Westchester County, are defendants in the fraud case. James' office already has filed
It's so fucking
a first
unbelievable
step
this
towards
happens in
seizing
America.
the Seven Springs property. The third thing that could happen, Trump finds the money. Trump could find a well-to-do person or several people to come to his aid and lend him money to put up a bond. A person with Trump's wealth would normally be able to work with a bank, which is used to taking real estate as collateral to get a bond issued, but Trump has few banking relationships remaining, records show, and limited access to banks makes getting a bond much more difficult. Number four, according to the Washington Post,
Here we go.
the
See what I
appeals
tell you.
court
We get
steps
fucking
in.
this
The
clown
easiest way out of this
pushing
predicament for Trump is to get a lifeline
anti-Trump
from the New
garbage.
York Supreme Court Appellate Division. Trump's attorneys have asked that court to reduce, delay, or waive the bond requirement. The court could say that Trump does not need to post a bond at all unless his appeal is over and he loses, or the panel could allow him to post a smaller bond. And finally, Trump files for bankruptcy, the Post writes. As the Post detailed recently, legal experts and some people in Trump's camp recognize that filing for bankruptcy would probably push all these problems down the road by months or maybe years. Trump
So
wouldn't
fucking
escape his
stupid.
debt to the court, and in fact, interest would still continue to accrue, but the clock would stop ticking on his need to immediately put up a bond. That's in the Washington Post. Let's hear next from Steve, who's in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. Steve's calling on our Republican line. Hi, Steve.
Good morning, Peter. It's good to see you on the air again. I wanted to comment about the two gentlemen you had on talking about the Israel-Hamas war, and it was one of the best segments I've seen on C-SPAN in some time. Thank you for that. The lady from California, she talked about the Trump supporters and how there is, in her opinion, something wrong with them. And there's all sorts of assumptions of what if Donald Trump becomes president again, what will happen with America. And it's a narrative that is pushed by many people in government too. I'm a Trump supporter, and almost 99.999% of everything that I hear about what I believe and what I will do is just totally 100% nonsense. And this extreme mega type narrative that is pushed continually, especially by people like Hakeem Jeffries. He can't give a speech without saying extreme mega 15 times. It's disheartening. I think Donald Trump is getting railroaded to the extreme. Hate to be ironic in using the word extreme, but we are in dangerous times, America. And the idea that political enemies are now just that, political enemies, and the Department of Justice and district attorneys and attorneys generals across the nation are playing lawfare against people could lead to the ruin of our nation. And thank you for the time.
That's Steve in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, and Robert is next from Augusta, Georgia. Independent. Hi, Robert.
All right, Robert.
This is Robert from Augusta, Georgia. We want to count on the people's business and keeping things free enough where legal doesn't take place, where money is done by money alone, with the improvement of products as they progress, and also the southern border. Suddenly, they rented out some very fabulous buses, letting them know why they were there for economic reasons, and all of a sudden the problems become less important, and the people out there are starting to earn incomes, and our economy is starting to boom.
All right, Robert, I apologize. We're going to have to leave it there. If you get on, don't use a speakerphone. You know, speak clearly. We want to be able to understand you, and so does everybody else. Mike in Brentwood, Tennessee, Democrat. Mike, go ahead. What's on your mind this morning?
Yes. I would just like to say all these people that are so mad about inflation and they say they're going to vote for Trump, you know, because they're mad about the inflation. Well, just wait till they're mad. I mean, they're mad about Biden for the inflation. Well, just wait till Trump gets in. He keeps talking about putting anywhere from 60 to 100% tariff on everything from China. Now, what do you think that's going to do? Even his own economists say that that's a terrible idea and it's going to raise prices of everything through the roof.
Thank you, sir, for calling in. There is a site called Real Clear Politics. Don't know if you're familiar with it. RealClearPolitics.com is the site. One of their categories is polls, and every day they update polls. And here are some of the latest. They do it either by state or by national.
Oh my God,
and
this guy acts like we
just
started watching this shit.
Recent polls. Here's a Michigan poll where they have President Trump up by 3 points, and another Michigan poll where they have President Trump up by 2, and they have RFK Jr. in there as well. Then they have a West Virginia Senate primary, West Virginia governor. Friday's poll, Trump versus Biden in Michigan. They have President Trump up by 8 points. Pennsylvania tied up at 46 and 46, and it goes on and on. So in case you're interested in following the daily polling that's done, go to realclearpolitics.com. You'll see over on the left-hand side, see where it says polls. You can just click on that and you can follow along. John's calling in from Texas, Republican line. Hi, John.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. In case everybody forgot, the pilgrims that came to this side of the world looking for a place to worship their Lord freely, well, if they look ahead now, what's going on, there's no freedom in America anymore under the Democrat Party. And the most important thing for everyone to remember is to worship Jesus wholeheartedly, because he's our only plan of salvation for this country, for any country. And what a child is raised to, how they're raised and what they're taught is what they're going to continue the rest of their life. And folks need to recognize Jesus.
Thank you, sir, for calling in. Let's hear from Stephen in Baltimore, a Democrat. Hi, Stephen.
I just want to comment on the two gentlemen that you had on in the previous segment.
All right, let's go, Stephen.
What you have to do to look at the future of this conflict in Gaza is look to history. Look to American history when the Europeans came essentially and took land from Native Americans. Now, did the Indians fight back? Yes, they did. You remember Little Bighorn, Wounded Knee? Now, eventually, they are going to kill enough Palestinians so that they'll be, like no threat to them at all, or push them off the land. And so for those people who are for this, for the starving of little kids, for the ethnic cleansing that Israel is doing, just remember that when you stand before Jesus, just tell Jesus that you were for it before you were against it. Thank you.
And that's it.
I want to show you a couple more headlines here. This is from The Hill. And the Biden campaign, everyone knows how former President Trump likes to give nicknames. But the Biden campaign tests Trump's name-calling strategy by calling him Broke Don. They're giving that a tryout. And in the Wall Street Journal, MSNBC has no plans to have ex-RNC chief on the network. MSNBC has no plans to have former Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel on the cable network, its president told employees following the news of her hiring at NBC News. Rashida Jones, the cable network's president, has been seeking to address internal backlash in the wake of an internal Friday announcement by NBC News regarding McDaniel's hiring as an on-air contributor. In that internal memo, the political
Nobody gives a shit about Ronna McDaniel. She gone.
McDaniel would contribute across all NBC News platforms, causing turmoil among several of the network's on-air hosts and staffers. People familiar with the matter said. Rashida Jones, the president of MSNBC, told employees the cable work has no plans to have McDaniel on the channel. And that's in the Wall Street Journal this morning.
So stupid.
Julian in Englishtown, New Jersey. Please go ahead with your comment. Hi.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. So I wanted to talk about, sort of the divisiveness of Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
And the problem I have with a lot of what the Republicans, their supposed ideology is, they seem to be always voting against their best interests. When they say that they are for law and order, they vote for a literal criminal, somebody who's been convicted of many crimes, defrauding many people,
no, he
charities
hasn't.
and such. And, they say they support the police, but during Donald Trump's presidency, I believe he cut federal funding for local police by something like $200 million.
All right, Julian.
Okay, Julian, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
One more article from the Washington Times. Biden's ghostwriter subpoenaed by House Judiciary Committee. House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan has subpoenaed President Biden's ghostwriter in an effort to get any transcripts and recordings of his interviews with the president to prove that classified material was shared. This is in the Washington Times in case you are interested in reading it for yourself. Half hour left in our program this morning, and we're going to turn our attention to electronic vehicles, EVs, with longtime
All right,
auto
we
reporter
almost had
Jeff
it
Gilbert
close.
of WWJ News Radio in Detroit. We'll be right back.